Dzień dobry, and welcome to another episode of A Brit in Poland. This week's episode is one that's been requested by a few people, and I hope will be quite a useful guide for people who are visiting Poland, or even people that have freshly moved here. Because what we're going to talk about is public transportation. Now, not everyone coming to Poland will have a car or will feel comfortable driving. I mean, Polish driving can be a bit crazy. A lot of people cite that there are a lot of accidents and a lot of bad drivers, particularly in places like Warsaw. So this video is going to focus very much on the forms of public transport you have, maybe try and give you a little bit of history into those forms of transport as well. But also be a practical guide in telling you how to find tickets, how to plan routes, and how to make your journey easier. So please stay tuned. I hope this video will be useful for you. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. With this channel, I travel across the country, I bring you the culture, and I show you just how amazing Poland is. So I invite you on my journey. If you want to see more, I have Facebook and Instagram profiles, which you will find links to in the description below. And if you want to really help out, you can turn to my Patreon or Patronite accounts, again in the description. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Do zobaczenia. So let's start the video by the basic form of public transport, which is your own 2 feet. So, as a pedestrian, there are certain rules that you would perhaps want to be aware of when you're in Poland. I think it's the same in quite a few European countries. So, one thing that differs in the UK is Poland, they love their fines. They really do. So do be careful. So if you cross a pedestrian crossing with a traffic light when you don't have the green man, you can be fined for that. I don't know what the fine is, 100, 200 zloty, maybe less, but it can happen. If you're using your mobile phone when crossing these, you can also be fined because it's kind of seen as dangerous and a bit negligent, shall we say. So you do need to be careful when you're walking, obviously pay attention. Cars are generally pretty good at stopping at crossings here, but don't take that for granted. Sometimes you have to be, let's say, a bit bold when you're doing crossings, and cars will like screech to a halt if need be, but don't put yourself in danger. And getting from A to B, to be honest, I use Google Maps. Pretty much all of Poland is set up for Google Maps. When it comes to public transport, it's a bit hit and miss depending on where you are, but certainly for walking routes, it's 96% accurate. It's tried to take me through some garden fences before. Poland is quickly developing, and I guess Google can't keep up. But anyway, that's walking. Let's talk about trams. So, actually, Poland has a fairly long history of tram networks. Originally, they would have been horse-drawn trams, especially in cities like Warsaw. So, you're going back into the kind of 19th century territory there. And it was places like Łódź, I think, that experienced the first electric trams in Poland around 1905, if I remember correctly. And many other places like Warsaw followed suit fairly quickly afterwards. And you have tram networks in, you could say, well, every major Polish city that I've been to has some form of tram network. And for me, they're kind of my ideal way to travel around because, well, they don't get stuck in traffic for one. But also in Poland, they're incredibly cheap, along with pretty much all the public transportation, which I think is incredibly green and beneficial to the people. So in Warsaw, when you're buying a ticket for a tram, for 20 minutes you pay like 3 zloty 40, which is, you know, like less than a pound, you know, like 80p, 60, 80p, something like that. And you can buy longer tickets, but then they only go up to like 4 zloty 50 or something. And the longer tickets are for 90 minutes and allow you to actually cross across different forms of transportation. So jump from tram to tram, or tram to bus, or tram to metro. So that's quite beneficial. Now, the thing with trams, I found, is they do vary from city to city in terms of how you can pay for these, and even when you do pay, how you register that kind of information. So I'm going to try and give some examples which might be helpful. So firstly, trams normally do give you the option of paying for a ticket on the tram itself. And in places like Warsaw, you can use a card, so it's nice and easy. But one thing I noticed when I was in Krakow, maybe it's changed now, but this was only a couple of years ago, you had to have coins to pay for your tram ticket. And I don't know about you, but in this day and age where, let's be honest, most money is digital, carrying coins isn't exactly my strong suit. So what I would advise is for you to use a specific app, and I'll say that they are not paying me to say this. This is one I genuinely use virtually every day. And this app is called Jak Dojada. And Jak Dojada, it's you basically top it up, select the city, or if you're like just staying in one city, it will stay as the default. But if you say spend a week in Warsaw and then decide to go to Krakow, you'll need to change the city. You then pick the type of ticket that you want. So normally a time ticket. Sometimes you can get a day pass or a 3-day pass for a bit more. And then this is where it differs. So in Warsaw, once you've selected your ticket and paid for it, what will happen is you need to scan a QR code that is inside the tram, and those are pretty easy to find. So yeah, that's like, it's nice because like the ticket is automatically activated as soon as you scan, and then so you know how much time you've got. In other cities, sometimes is it in Poznan? I'm not sure. Once you pay for the ticket, it's automatically activated. So you have to be, let's make sure to activate it just before you take the tram and not while you're waiting at the stop. And then there are other cities, like Krakow, for example, where it will prompt you to enter a code. So sometimes it will ask for the tram number. Sometimes it will ask for a specific code that you will find within the tram. And these can be a bit of a pain to find, but they're normally at the front and back at the very least. So actually getting by tram is pretty simple. So yeah, especially when you use apps like Jak Dojada. And I'll put the name on the screen just so it's clear. And you can get it on App Store, I assume Google apps as well. So yeah, trams, good way forward. Method of transport, we're going to talk about buses. This is very similar to trams because if you're taking buses within a city, you can often just use an app like Jak Dojada, or you can buy tickets from a machine on the bus. However, it varies a lot depending on the city. So it may be a good idea to Google ahead of time on the specific app that your city uses. Because I think Mobilet is another one, and maybe other ones still. Some cities, I think they even have their own apps. So it gets a bit confusing. Uh, Sometimes you'll be able to buy tickets from machines, but I find this is kind of less common and it's maybe not the best way. And then when it comes to some buses, especially buses that kind of go more regionally or from city to city, you will have to buy the tickets for those on the websites. So for example, I took a couple of trips to say, like I took one to Kazimierz Dolny, and I had to go onto this like Halo buses, I think. Yeah, there are a number of different bus companies, but so you need to kind of do a bit of, let's say, research on the internet to figure out which bus company runs, a line between city A and city B. Then go to that website, look at the timetable, and buy your tickets in advance. And for those, definitely buy in advance, because otherwise you may get to the bus and they won't have spaces for you. And there are some situations where even if they don't have spaces, they cram people on, but they shouldn't be doing that. It is against the law, and it is incredibly unsafe as well as uncomfortable, especially for long journeys. But yeah, buses, they're perhaps a little bit more complicated, but mainly just because you sometimes have to do a bit more research to figure out exactly how to take your bus. So we're going to talk about the metro in this session. So at the moment, Warsaw is the only city that has a metro network. So by metro, I mean like an underground. Not quite as sophisticated as like the London Underground, but you can see a metro station. They have the big M, so don't confuse it for McDonald's. And at the moment in Warsaw, you have two metro lines which go north to south, east to west, and they intersect around the Świętokrzyska point. I believe the plan by 2050 is to have 5 of these lines, which is going to be quite a change. Since moving to Warsaw 7 years ago, I've seen about 4, maybe 5 new stations open up. So they are definitely something in regular development. And using the metro is pretty simple. So when it comes to buying tickets, you can use the Yada app, scan the QR code. That's what I would argue is the easiest way. You can buy tickets at the stations. There are machines. Though with the machines, you risk the issue of potentially your ticket not printing or the machine breaking down. Very rare, but it can happen. And then when you get these tickets, you can basically stamp them in the kind of the entry gates. There are some people, particularly kids, who decide that it's a good idea to just jump over these gates. Every time I see that, the slightly sadistic part of me hopes that they fall and crack open their skulls. Because I'm not a big fan of people breaking the law, but maybe I'm being unusually cruel. And the metro, it moves very fast. Because it only has that like cross, you won't get to everywhere in the city with a metro. But it is a great way to get from north to south in a pretty short amount of time. I think if you were to go the whole length of the metro, it would maybe be 45 minutes to an hour. And if you were walking, that would probably take 3 or 4 hours. If you're driving, God, you're going to get stuck in traffic. It's going to be a nightmare. So definitely recommend the metro, and don't be afraid to use it. It's super easy. Worst experience you'll have is perhaps some homeless chap having a nap on there, and maybe generating the not so best smell. But yeah, do use the metro. Okay, so let's talk about maybe the more complicated section of this video. And this is the train network in Poland. And you have trains that go pretty much across the country. I'm not saying they go everywhere. If they went everywhere, I would be much happier, because primarily I use train to travel around Poland. No, instead, like, you'll find every major city will be connected by train. And your smaller places probably won't be. You're going to come across all kinds of different abbreviations when it comes to the trains, and these are sort of relevant, but let's try and go into them a little bit. So you have IC, which means an intercity train. So that's basically what it means. It just goes from city to city, like most trains do. But they tend to be more kind of countrywide, sometimes crossing borders into, say, Lithuania, Czech Republic, Slovakia. And those, you have a version of those called Express Intercity, EIP, I think. And so this is called locally Pendolino. So these are trains that go a lot faster. So they don't make as many stops, they go faster, they're more modern trains, but you pay a lot more. You could probably pay more than double the price for a regular train with those more expensive ones. And then, like in Warsaw in particular, you have a few local abbreviations. You have like SKM, ZTM, and WKD. And to be honest, like, from my perspective, it doesn't really matter which one you take. They're all kind of similar. I'm sure there are some differences, and I'll try and put some information on the screen that maybe further develops that. But these tend to be more local trains. They don't travel as far. They tend to go to more kind of local cities and things. I'm walking back and forth because I want to keep the station in the background. But the question is, how do you buy tickets for trains? And it varies. So, for example, if you're going intercity, there are a lot of different apps, probably quite a few websites, and this would apply to all of them in fairness. What I tend to do is I use a website called pkp.pl. So this is like the government railway site, and it will basically, you type in the city you're starting from and the city you want to end up at, and it will show you the different options. So it will tell you the times of the trains departing. It will tell you the like if there are any changes that you have on your way. I would try and avoid changes if possible. And then you can ultimately buy tickets on this website as well. And it's better to buy these in advance. In fact, you have to for a lot of these kind of, longer services that you're doing. There are certain apps as well. So I think Yakdiada has recently added something for trains, though I think that might be more local trains. I'm not sure, I haven't tried it out yet. You have one called SkyCash, which I have to be honest, is not the most user-friendly app, but it's one that works pretty well for your local trains, which may not always appear on pkp.pl, because that one doesn't seem to have all of your regional trains listed on there, which is interesting. And a lot of the time when it does feature regional trains, it will redirect you to a site which is owned by that regional company. So please bear that in mind. So when it comes to kind of buying tickets, that is your best way. Do it in advance. You can buy tickets at stations, though I would say if you don't know Polish, you might struggle there. It's kind of, a lot of the time they won't speak English at train stations. This is just me being honest. Not always the case, but a lot of the time. So you need to at least have basic Polish, I'd say, to use that service and to make it a fluid transaction. On some of these trains, especially the regional trains, you can buy tickets on the train, but you have to make sure you do it as soon as you board. And when you do that, you have to go to the front of the train, so you have to figure out which end is the front and speak to the conductor and let him know, which stop you're getting off at, and then they will charge the appropriate fee. So we've done that sometimes when we haven't had time to book a ticket, if we're buying a last minute, jumping on a last minute train, for example. So yeah, I think that kind of covers it. If you get like a paper ticket for like a local train, you will have to stamp it when you get onto the train. There'll be devices for that. But when it comes to buying tickets, yeah, for some of the local ones, and I'll try and put it on the screen because I don't remember exactly, you can use the standard transport tickets in Warsaw. I think it costs about the same, maybe it's slightly cheaper. But for a lot of the trains, you will have to buy the designated ticket. And if you get stuck, the best thing to do is to just Google the route and then maybe the name of the company, and then you'll find their website. But okay, so I think that's enough time on trains and how to buy tickets there. Any questions, of course, feel free to add to the comments. Now, when you're actually in a train station, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to figure out which platform you need to go to. So what you often have are these like yellow or white kind of departure sheets which list all of the departures for that day, saying which platform, which side of the platform. So these are quite useful. Sometimes you get electronic display boards which also list all of the trains. And what I've found is like a nice little tip is if you look at the time your train is meant to depart based on your ticket, it's easier to look for the time than the destination, because with these boards and things, it will always say what the final destination is. And then in order to like see your particular stop, you have to like read through the fine print, as it were. So focus more on the time. It's not foolproof. I mean, sometimes on Google, if you type the train in, it will indicate now the platform that it's going from as well. So that's something else to bear in mind. Okay, so one section I almost forgot to include is about car transport. So I'm not going to talk about hiring cars. You can do this through various companies, and there is even an app where you have cars ready on the street that you can access. Make sure my mic is on. But there are certain services. So there is a car sharing service called BlaBlaCar. I've not personally used this, but I do know a few friends who use this not only for transport themselves, but also to make a bit of extra money when they're traveling from A to B. And it's basically, you have an app, you have a website, and you can just connect with a driver who is heading the same way as you. And I think that, as I say, I've not used it, but it's another option. Of course, within cities, and sometimes people choose to do this intercity, you have taxis. And let's say the taxi companies vary depending on where you are. So in Warsaw, we have Bolt, we have Uber, and of course we have, like, let's say the standard taxi companies as well. The advantage with Bolt and Uber is you can see what you're paying before you take the journey. And being honest, they are cheaper. But as I mentioned in my safety video, if you are a young woman traveling alone, there have been some rare cases where, let's say, women have got into trouble. But I don't want to say that's the norm. That's very rare cases. You can, of course, hail taxis like any other place, but you probably end up spending more. And some drivers may try and rip you off. you know, especially if you don't speak the language. I have maybe had that a couple of times. I tend not to use taxi services a lot, to be honest. But yeah, when you go to a new city, it's a good idea to Google what is available locally. Maybe to get some numbers of taxi companies. It's better to ring them up and book them, I'd say, than to flag them off down the street, because then at least you can get a price quote. But again, using these sort of services, well, your Polish may be needed. People do hitchhike. I'd say hitchhiking is very safe in Poland. You'll probably find it more done in the kind of mountainy areas, but yeah, like if you stick your thumb up, I think there's a chance that somebody might take pity on you. Okay, but yeah, when it comes to cars, that's all I can advise, really. So yeah, if you have more specific questions, maybe I can help, but yeah, that's it from me. Okay, so we're going to do one last section on this video, which I'm going to call like travel planning tips and tricks, that kind of thing. So I'll do my best to share, let's say, the resources and the secrets I utilize to actually get around Poland. I've been to pretty much every corner of this country now, so I have a fair idea of how to navigate from A to B. So firstly, one tip I could mention is in cities like Warsaw, I think maybe you have to be a resident, not sure, but you can buy travel cards which will last for, say, a month or 3 months. And once you have this card, it will cover pretty much all of your local transport. So it saves you having to buy a ticket each time. I've kind of weighed it up, and to be honest, like the rate I use public transport in comparison to how much the card costs, I'm saving money by buying those individual tickets. So I haven't done it personally, but a lot of people swear by them, and it does make your life easier. So that was just one little tip. And in regards to planning, I have like a hierarchy of planning I do. So I always start with the laziest way, which is Google. So if I want to go from city A to city B, I will type from here to here into the Google search, or on Google Maps directly actually, and it will show me if there is an obvious train or maybe an obvious bus. This is very hit and miss, and it probably doesn't even show you all of the options that are available for you. But it's the quickest way to determine something. You know, if I'm going to Krakow, I will type that into Google and I will look, and then I'll see, oh, there are actually several trains going. However, the better approach is firstly go to pkp.pl, or if you use another site, fair play, but that's the one I find best. And you do the same thing. You type in your cities, the date and time of travel, and it will show you the options, even if it involves changing a train or two along the way. So you can use that website to find your route. However, sometimes that on its own doesn't work, because not all only trains are listed on there, and it often misses some of, let's say, the regional trains. So the second site I will use is called ePodróżnik. I'll put that on the screen so that you can see that. But effectively, this is a more comprehensive listing of the different transport networks, including your buses. So, especially for your kind of, let's say, more isolated areas of Poland, it gives you a much better range of options. However, yeah, that's like my second tier. Worst comes to worse, you can literally Google, but Google in Polish. So Google the city names in Polish, and if you put like od, which means from, and do, which is 2. So od Warszawa do Cracovia, for example. Then you get a range of sources, and they might indicate, different travel companies or local buses or whatever local networks are in play. If that all fails, then you can try maybe contacting tourist information of the various cities and asking them if they know about any local services. And when I was in Sandomierz, they were incredibly helpful with that. I did find the information online, but they actually contacted these companies. They helped me to book tickets. So these tourist information places are pretty useful. So I hope that by the end of this video, you feel a little bit more comfortable with public transport in Poland. I'm not going to tell you that it's, instantly easy and instantly common sense. But you pick it up pretty quickly, especially once you've done it a few times, and your knowledge just continues to grow as your experience grows. So I hope this has been helpful. Do like the video. If you want to add anything, maybe you think that I've missed something which would be useful for people, feel free to add any additional information. Maybe if it turns out I've missed a lot, which I doubt, but you never know, I'll do a follow-up video for that. But thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it, and good luck in your travels in Poland. I hope you have a magical time in this wonderful country. Do zobaczenia.